This is James Gennard again of Stourbridge 3A. I'm already thinking about what happens when Microsoft's extended service update for Windows 10 computers comes to an end, October the 13th, 2026. What can we do? What can we do with the old PCs, laptops, and tablets that are only able to run Windows 10 and not Windows 11? So the first question is fairly simple. Do you need a new faster PC or laptop anyhow? In which case, buy one with at least 16 GB RAM, 500 GB SSD, an i7 CPU spec or the equivalent AMD processor. If you do that, you're probably future-proofed for at least 5 years of Windows software updates, but there's no guarantee. Depends on what Microsoft do, because the new software is all going to be AI assisted with Copilot integrated into Microsoft apps. If you don't use them, then you're lucky. But there'll be more and more AI in all the software. If you don't want to buy a new PC or laptop or tablet at this point, you could buy a second-hand one, which is still man enough for Windows 11. I'm expecting the minimum spec will be 8 GB of RAM, 200 to 240 GB SSD, and an Intel i3 CPU spec or equivalent AMD. That computer will probably last you for about 3 years of Windows software updates, but it could struggle with the artificial intelligence and Copilot software. So we're currently here. If in actual fact you don't want to buy a second-hand PC, you want to keep your current PC or laptop as it is today, then you can change your operating system from Windows to something called Chrome OS Flex, which is basically like operating within the Chrome browser and using all of the Google apps that are available there. That particular operating system isn't too bad. The hot the hardware, if the hardware is compatible at the start, it will probably last until 2028, a couple of years' time, because even Google are increasing the hardware requirements of their software. What you'll have is equivalent to a Chromebook, basically, and Chromebooks eventually go into date because they refuse to update the software. So you end up with the compromise being no Microsoft-based apps, only Google and independent apps possible. So finally, we come down to the point where you're inclined to scrap it or donate it to willing recipients because you've given up on Windows completely. But you can use PCs as standalone devices still. I've got one that uses a color printer, which is so out of date, it won't connect to a modern PC, and there are no drivers for it for modern software, Windows software. So I use it standalone. A Windows XP computer and a color photo printer, and they're compatible still. They still work, so you can use them offline. Connecting them to the internet would be dangerous because the operating system could be hacked quite easily. Alternatively, if you have a fairly low spec PC of any kind, you could install a Linux-based software and go back to using it online because Linux software is usually kept quite up to date and it's quite versatile. There are an awful lot of choices of Linux software. I'm recommending two. Linux Mint for higher spec PCs and Linux Lite for ones that have older hardware, i.e. like the i3 CPU processor and maybe only 4 GB of RAM. The compromise you pay is a restricted usage capability, i.e. the software scope isn't as big as it would be for Windows machines. And there's also a high learning curve with new software. If you don't know Linux, it's still got a reasonably powerful operating system, but you have to get used to the new menus and things like that, and slightly a different way of doing things. So that's my summary for the moment. I dare say I'll update it over time and change some of the detailed specs and things and the dates where those are a bit more fluid. Thank you very much.